Still says starting recording, and there we go. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about the subject of comfort versus discomfort. Some of this is based on the book some of us have read called The Comfort Crisis by Michael Easter, but also on personal experiences and just many, many other things we've either read or experienced throughout our lives. We've got a couple of questions we'll throw out there to kind of be like a framework structure of the call, if you will. I don't think we need to go through introductions. We've done that plenty of times already, unless you guys feel the need. Awesome. So we were talking a little before we hit the record button, and Mario, you had something you were bringing up about yourself and your wife that recently came up.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. So we had a nice morning, a brisk morning. Dew was still quite out, but temperatures are dropping up here. And my wife had the idea kind of last minute to go on a goat walk with the dogs this morning, and she asked if I wanted to come along. So I said, hell yeah, goat walks are awesome. Very relaxing and fun. I got some pictures and videos that I'll have to show you. But so as we were walking up, I mentioned her, actually, when we were walking down, I mentioned to her that we were going to start talking. We got a Project Felix thing today that, what are you going to, well, she asked me, what are you talking about? I said, comfort. I didn't say comfort or discomfort. I said just the topic of comfort, and I think I left it at that. And then we talked a little more, and she's like, well, what are you going to talk about? And so it got me thinking about the idea of comfort. And, typically I would go to, defining it, all that kind of stuff. But one of the important things about the idea of comfort, I believe, is similar to or akin to balance in life with anything. I've talked about, duality, two ends of the spectrum, light and dark, and, with food can be and is supposed to be nourishment for our body and to keep the body going to do what it needs to do, right? Whatever its job is in life, military, librarian, whatever, anything in life. And so but food, our body's intake, food and drink, can also be comfort as well. When, we were training for Iraq or Afghanistan, whether it be military pre-deployment training or, some supplemented stuff we did on our own. The idea is to get out of your comfort zone and, push and push and push and, push your body and develop that muscle memory when it's at that point. But I'm pretty sure most of us at some point are we going to be done soon? I want to go back and I'm tired of being on my feet. Or, it happens. You can't, as we've said before, metaphorically, white knuckle everything, not just mental health, but like physically too. You can only endure that so much. And that's the same thing. There needs to be, I believe, an appropriate balance of comfort. What that looks like, conceptually for each person looks different. For me personally, comfort is finding that balance of spending not too much time outside playing and doing fun projects and all that stuff, or creek walks and stuff, which is great. But understanding that sometimes that pendulum, needs to come back more because I do have the responsibilities that I have in life. Same thing with, I brought that analogy up with food. I was a chunky monkey for most of my time in the military. I was very capable chunky monkey, But now that I'm out 3 years, retired, and I've learned kind of how life looks like for me, and now I'm learning where that balance is. My weight has dropped down to the lowest it's been since 2011 when I was getting ready to go to Afghanistan for Bravo. So just to be able to get back to that and, being more flexible and physically fit, taking care of myself, not neglecting the physical part nearly as much as I was before, has an effect on the brain too. Especially with TBIs and all that stuff. If you eat junk food and sugary things, to include, alcohol and overindulgence of things like we've talked about, that there's an appropriate balance, that has an effect on the brain as well. So if there's if we can make simple tweaks here and there, incremental changes, Brad, like we talked about before, just a
Atomic
couple
habits.
things. Yeah, atomic habits. See, if we can make a couple of those changes, even through, the things that we ingest, change that up, that has effects on the mind as well. So, but yeah, those are some of the things that I think about with comfort, is that necessary balance. I would not necessarily ascribe what I think is comfort to everybody else around me, because some people would say that being outside as much as I am, or, doing this and that, is not comfortable. They would rather be inside doing it. So, that's for each person to determine for themselves what comfort is. But I just bring that up as an example for myself.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned food as a comfort. That is, I don't know, a big portion of the book. But of course, many, many other schools of thought, not just this book, but in Comfort Crisis, he talks about that. Thinking about, why do you eat? Why are you eating? Are you even actually hungry? Do you even know what real hunger is? Like, and especially in like modern American culture, because we're so fortunate and we have so much. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of Americans who do actually legitimately go hungry. I'm not trying to say that they don't exist, but comparatively speaking to, a couple hundred years ago, maybe, or maybe even more than that, like most people don't really know what the definition or know what the real feeling of actual hunger is. And that's kind of been a massive shift, right? He talks about how hunger was a driving force in the survival of mankind, in fact. So that's why we have that reward. You get that dopamine hit when you taste something super sugary or salty or whatever, to encourage you to keep doing that, because in your mind, you're still a caveman who needs to eat every single thing you see, because you don't know where the next meal's coming from. And that's what leads to overeating, and especially eating like overly processed and overly sugared and salted and whatever chemical business. They talk about processed food and what that definition is, and how that's kind of maybe a misnomer in some ways, because I mean, a cucumber that somebody else farmed and shipped to me and cut up is technically processed, right? Even though it's a cucumber. So it's important not to just label stuff and just simplify it, like make a complex issues simple. And then and there's some other notes that are brought up that are pretty interesting. They talk about the benefits of fasting. Even like every once in a while, maybe just try to take a 24-hour period where you only drink water, you don't eat any food, and actually feel that real hunger again, and know what that really feels like, to help you remind you of what real hunger is, so that when you are bumping around the kitchen and you see some candy bars or whatever snacks on the side, you're like, oh man, those look good, I'm going to go ahead and mow down half the bag. Well, why did you do that? Like, and that's another part of it, is why did you do that? What are you seeking comfort from? Is it stress from work? Is it stress from a relationship or whatever, some other stuff like that? So it's a way to be more deliberate and think about that. And then before I go running off on too many more tangents, there's two more notes I have typed up from listening to you talk. It goes back to fasting. He talks a little bit about how your body processes nutrients in the food that you eat, right? And, the weaker and the dying cells are the ones that get, killed off first and burned off and whatever and discarded. But if you're constantly packing your body full of food, those cells don't get discarded as much, and they're more likely to turn into cancer cells. So there's a lot of studies going into this, and I'm not a freaking doctor. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. It's just an interesting thought of, hey, could fasting help, be one more way to kind of fend off cancer a little bit, because we're getting rid of those bad cells before they turn into cancer cells. So just a thought that I definitely want to look more into and find some academic research on that's peer reviewed. Some other notes too. The last one is focus on goals. So thinking about it, like, and people talk about the wolf all the time or whatever, or just a person, but when are you more focused? Are you more focused when you're full and content, or are you more focused when you're hungry and looking for that next bit of sustenance because you need it? And that's just something. If you ever watch anything or listen to anything David Goggins says, I'm sure that rings true, because he talks about that kind of stuff all the time. So those are just some of the notes I was typing up. I swear I wasn't Googling what the weather is tomorrow or anything.
Brad, kind of hearing that last piece as you brought in what Mario said, at least for me, it kind of made a bridge to, I think, what a lot of us feel perhaps have gone through, depending on experiences. I think there's, especially when you talk comfort through food, comfort through alcohol, these things that work immediately on a chemical basis with your body. Okay, they're pretty immediate. You know what I mean? Like you said, there's an initial blast of dopamine, makes you feel good. Whether alcohol, food. I think that's kind of a bridge into, and again, this is speculation on my part. Like you, I am not a doctor, nor have I played one on television. But a lot of us have operated for a very long time at a very heightened state of stress. Okay. And so when you look at that with a raise in anxiety, right? And if you were to chart this out, you'd have, your high and your low, and you're just under, quite often, like Mario refers to it, you're white knuckling. I'm right here. Okay. Well, that food takes you up to where you feel good. Just like in many instances, why did many of us, when you think back, why did you enjoy combat? Because it took you up to where you felt again. And those were good feelings. Okay. So you can see where, as that has gone away as something that you did, somebody recently had written on, I know it was on the After the Long Walk Facebook page. It was on a couple of the other EOD ones about understanding your veteran, and there was a blurb in there about it is like an addiction. Here you are, where this took you to a place that you're very aware. The hunt, those are primal things, right? As a human, these chemical reactions happen within your body, and you feel, and you are aware, you're at one with your surroundings, and you're doing these things. Well, the good feeling part can be brought to you from food, from alcohol. Once again, you go up and then you go back down. And when you stay in that constant state of high anxiety, high stress, you're looking for what we're talking about right now, comforts. Sometimes they're the easily available comforts. You talked about food being, it's everywhere you look. There's food. There's food probably in multiple rooms of your house. It's there. It's easy to grab. I want to feel better right now. Give me that piece of candy. I'm going to grab this beer real quick. Moderation is fine. However, when you seek the easy comfort all of the time, I don't have to work hard to go get comforts. I don't have to step outside my comfort zone. I don't have to become uncomfortable to find comfort. I can go from fairly comfortable to really comfortable and drop back down to comfortable again. And that to me is how it kind of makes sense. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's how the bridges or the dots connect for me where I look at those, especially when you talk about like a food or an alcohol type thing.
Yeah, I was hoping you'd have something to add with that, and especially, I've been paying attention to your biceps. I'm not gonna lie, I can see your biceps now that your lighting has changed, and I'm thinking, like, if anybody understands the need of taking care of themselves, it's Paz, you know. But it is important, you know. Because too much on the other end of the spectrum really takes away from, I think, one's ability to make it through anything that's on the spectrum of hardship, struggle, change. Dare I say that schedules, routines can be comfort for some people. Not that schedules and routines are a bad thing, but I believe I've seen it when somebody's so stuck to their routine that can't go outside of that routine that it limits their behavior and it limits their social connectedness, let's say. So I don't know. I bring that up because we were talking a couple times ago, Paz, about your situation down in Texas, your living situation, not being co-located. And the whole time you were talking, one of the things I was saying, looking at your background, was, it might look comfortable, but would you feel comfortable speaking about what that's been like down there, and maybe what initially discomfort ended up pushing you to a direction of growth, maybe, let's say? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess, kind of quick description of my current living situation is, yeah, I'm still active duty, still down here in San Antonio, doing I'm in, still, like I said, still active duty, doing my EOD job, down here, staff position. And my family, recently we moved them up to Rhode Island, which is going to be our forever home. I have somewhere between either August of next year I'll retire, or April of 23. So kind of undefined as to how long I will still be here in San Antonio, trying to make that work with them, with my wife, 2 kids being up in Rhode Island. And yeah, I mean, it poses, obviously, stressors, both personally, financially, all of these things, because, I am renting an entire another place to live, which comes with an entire another set of bills, when you look at the pyramid of what you need to survive, and you're on that base layer of security, food, a shelter. I have all of those things. However, they come at a greater cost than we would normally have if everyone was in one place. I would say what's been tougher on me is the emotional piece. Those that do know me know that I do family stuff. I love the time I have with my wife. I love the time I have with my boys. It's not easy. The most recent was getting to go up for my son's birthday in Rhode Island. Had a couple days together, enjoyed it, but watching him be a tough kid in the back seat of the car at the airport when I'm doing hugs and going to get into the airport, and he's choking back tears, I don't care how tough you are. That's not an easy one, and it's one that I know that we will get through. Um, and it's being okay with that. Because it comes back to some basic questions. Does my family know I love them? Yes. Do they know I'm doing the best I can to get back up there? Yes. Does it have to be done? And maybe this spurs a bit of a different part of the conversation. Does it have to be done in the right way? Yes. I will not lie. I will not forego my responsibilities that I have said I will do. I made a commitment, and my word means a lot to me, and I think it defines a lot of who I am and who I want to be for my family. Therefore, uh, I will serve and do my job until it's time to not do my job. And open and honest communication with the family. I mean, this isn't something that took us by surprise or anything. These are decisions we made, my wife and I did as a family. We knew it would be tough. Did we take some gambles? Yeah. I was up for an MEB. They decided that's not the direction they're going. So it just makes this part a little bit longer. Where I've grown, and I would say we have grown, because I'm not in this by myself and I'm fully aware of that, is my wife and I mean, obviously all the communications you would normally do in person are done over a setting like this or just a phone. And we're still making those, decisions and ways forward. So yes, there's strength to be gained in our communication, our appreciation for the time that we do have together, which I think I'll do my best to wrap this and send it back to Brad with. There was a section in the book where, although we're not talking about death, we're talking about hard things. Okay. And having an appreciation for the time that we do have today. I could make the choice to sit here and be miserable. And I'm human, and there are moments I do that. There are days I do that. That's life. But I can choose to do my job well. I can choose to make productive days out of today. There's ways to be productive that further what I hold near and dear. And those are choices. I don't always make them on my own. Sometimes it's when I watch a video that Mario posted, or Brad Klein points me towards a book and I go, okay, not too bad, and those are, I'm using those as examples because we're sitting here. But once again, having that community around each other, you got to let people in. And I have, and I'm happier for it. I've tried to be the tough guy on my own because I was concerned with what everybody would think of me. Is he just a sad sack over here? Well, maybe you'll think it, but I'm going to be honest about it and own it. So I think I've allotted my time. So I will yield the rest of my time back to the gentleman from Italy.
No, you could talk as long as you want, man. That was awesome stuff. I actually, it was funny. I already knew where you were going, because I actually, in my notes that I'm taking here, for when I chop this up into short clips too, I already typed Impermanence as the first note. And maybe we're not talking about the impermanence that they talk about at that point in the book when he goes to Bhutan, but something that I was thinking about yesterday while I was doing a little bit of meditation on two wheels, so to speak, riding a motorcycle for like 200 miles in these insane Italian mountains, is that everything is changing all the time. That's another form of impermanence. It's not just about dying, right? Everything is changing. And so what I came to the realization of, and I don't know if the book flat out said this or not, but I was just thinking about it. No matter what's happening, if it's good, if it's bad, it's not going to stay that way, either way. And there's something to be taken from that. because if something bad is happening, that's not permanent. That's going to change. Eventually, it will change. That's the basis of this stuff, right? If something awesome is going on, it's not going to stay that way. It will eventually change in some way. And there's things you can actually take away from that. Of first of all, you get, if things are bad, you get hope out of that, right? You get the hope of things are going to get better at some point. It will happen, and it may require me to put in some effort, right? It's not just going to say like just sit back and don't do anything and it'll automatically magically get better. I'm not trying to suggest that by any stretch. But also too, when things are going awesome, that is going to change at some point. And what you need to, take away from that part of it is remember those times when things were awesome, and store that away in your permanent memory banks if you can, and reflect back on that when it's the opposite, when things aren't going awesome. For me, the personal, right away, the forefront of my mind, I mean, I have a couple, but the very first one that comes to my mind, because I realized it when it was happening, was when I went salmon fishing with my dad on Lake Ontario the year before he passed away. And he would just come out of chemo and was starting to get better, was doing, was able to get out and do some stuff and be active. And we went up to Lake Ontario and we went fishing for salmon on the lake. And it was just insane. And some people, if you're spiritual, you might say that was God, right? And I'm not necessarily religious myself, but I could see that in this instance. If you want to call it God, you want to call it whatever you want. But this was one of those times where things were going awesome, but I knew it wasn't going to be forever. So I tried to make sure I stored as much of it in my head to refer back to later on in life, and remember that awesome things will happen again. But just a quick rundown of the experience. We get out there on the lake, and the limit is 3 fish per day, right? And if you ask like a charter boat captain, like, oh, what's the limit? They're probably gonna laugh at you. Like, yeah, we don't get the limit every day. Like, just because it's the limit, that doesn't mean we catch that many fish. By, I don't know, 8:30 in the morning, we've been on the water maybe 2 hours. We had already each had our 2 in the cooler, and we were throwing back fish because we figured we could get bigger ones. And like the boat captain, I always recommend everybody because he's awesome. But he was just like, holy crap, I've never seen this in like 20, 30 years of freaking chartering boats on Lake Ontario. And we just killed it, absolutely killed it the whole entire time. And that's one of my favorite memories that I knew that it was going to come to an end at some point, but I would forever have that memory for the rest of my life. And that also comes up in Man's Search for Meaning some other ways, but I would try not to get too off the beaten path and go off on my tangents here. Turn it over to Mario if he's got anything to add. Something came up in his mind.
Yeah. Like you, all that shit's going through my head at the time. There was something that I picked up because you've talked about this. I remember when you went up there and did it. I remember when you posted the pictures. This has been a fond memory for quite some time. Anybody listening to you can tell, that it's important, right? And so this goes back to comfort, and I guess living in the moment is what I wrote down. And it seemed like the picture, the story you were telling, the picture you were painting, if you will, was of a really important moment, with you, that you got to share with your father at a certain time and place. And then I go and I start thinking, okay, what senses is he using? Taste, touch, sight, smell. It's that specific combination of stimuli that makes it a powerful moment. And that's kind of how it impacts you. And I have this theory, I guess this would make sense because I can tie this to some of the EOD things we've done. The more senses that we're using, depending on what's going on, the more impactful the moment is. Whether it's good or bad, I've talked about trauma is one end of the spectrum, and bliss, joy, elation is the other end. When I look back at some of the worst parts of my life and worst events that I've dealt with, have been very visual to me. Some of the worst things have had visual things associated with them, touch, handling things, probing, sweeping with fingers, consistency of certain things. That's when all those different sights, sounds, smells that are associated at a certain time are activated. And sometimes we don't even know that our body is experiencing, reliving what we're going through. I speak for my own experience with that. I have read something about that, how the body and mind experiences reliving. In the book, The Body Keeps the Score. I've talked about that before. For some, it's a hard to get through book. And it's hard to hear some of that stuff. But I think part of that stuff has helped me kind of process these concepts as well. And yeah, see it. But this has been recommended to me, I think, down at Warrior Path and somebody else. But a lot of concepts like that, when those senses come together, that's that muscle memory from that important event. And so just being able to, tie it back to comfort. I look at the way that majority of us live nowadays. And climate controlled, very comfortable beds, very comfortable eating, very comfortable driving. We're not inconvenienced by really much. We don't even have to hear when we're driving what the road or the engine feels like anymore. You're so isolated in this perfect little bubble that your senses are being dulled. I think people's senses are actually being dulled because of this extreme comfort. Yeah, Brad.
So I just had to raise my hand up because I think it was just before you joined, Paz and I were talking about this with riding a motorcycle versus driving a car. And driving a car is by all means more comfortable than riding a motorcycle, unless you're on like a Goldwing or something maybe, but those things are so big they may as well be cars. If you're riding a motorcycle that's not a Goldwing, right? It's so much different of an experience, because we were talking about like, I would love to. It looks so much fun, but like I don't know if I would be able to be able to do that safely because of how I drive a car. And it's like, well, you're forced to, because of the discomfort and the risk and everything else that's happening, and everything is involved. All four appendages sometimes are working in concert. Throttle, clutch, shifting, rear brake, all that stuff. And sitting on the bike, you're feeling your knees, you feel it in your butt, you feel it in your back. And then you're also processing everything that's coming at you. I feel like I talk about motorcycles every single time we do these, but that was just something that came up that I thought was awesome. Yep, exactly. You're forced to do that. And that's one of the hugest draws, I think, to riding a motorcycle is it's almost a form of meditation. People call it wind therapy. And there's a sort of a joke, I don't know, but that people say like you don't ever see a motorcycle parked, in front of like a therapist's office or something like that. But not that anybody should ever feel bad about getting therapy, but they're suggesting that riding a motorcycle can be that therapy for you. So, yeah, go ahead, Paz. You're muted, bud.
Sorry, little boomer situation there. Okay, got that mute button off. I think we're talking a lot about living in the moment. It really does. You can, but even we could take a step further and say we're making a conscious decision to step out of that comfort. certain times, and I think there's a delineation to be made of when it comes to comfort. There are certain times you choose to be out of your comfort zone. I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to go on this caribou hunt in Alaska in the Arctic. I'm going to walk the Appalachian Trail. I'm going to do these things, and these are these conscious decisions to go where I'm going to make these tests for myself. And then when you have these times that happen naturally, at least for me, a lot of the message of the book was you're going to be more in tune. And these really what comes down to in many instances really is a minor inconvenience that takes you out of this comfort zone. It's not as big of a deal anymore. And once again, you're operating at this area of a lower stress, a lower anxiety, because you've also reminded yourself through your own choices that I can go step outside of my comfort zone and things will be fine and I will get through them. Hearing all the discussion we've just had, especially about climate controlled areas and having food everywhere, it just reminded me of I don't know if you guys know who Mitch Hedberg was. He was a comedian, died a few years ago. He had a bit he did about escalators, and like when the escalator is out, there's always a sign up that says it is closed, and he's like, what is I'm sorry for the convenience, it is now a set of steps. And that is the conscious choice to go, well, yeah, it's not going to propel me up there, but I can still make it up here. I just have to take some of these steps myself. You know what I mean? It's a minor inconvenience. And by constantly, I mean, I'm sure you're going to get into misogi, if I'm pronouncing that right, but finding our own versions of that, and to what level allow us to be more comfortable with stepping out of our comfort zones.
Yeah. And if the author actually did an interview with Joe Rogan, and they talked about escalators and how many people choose to take, when given the option, how many people choose to take escalators versus stairs, and it's like 4% take the stairs or some crazy number like that. So a little anecdotal addition, but man, you made me think of something else, but I didn't write it down, and I'm already sidetracked because I saw something shiny. But there is another note I have that has been in the forefront of my mind to bring up as well. And actually, before I get to that, this is what one of the notes was. There's a TED Talk video I shared a little bit about comfort and embracing discomfort. And there's a quote that he threw out there. I don't know where it came from, but he said growth only occurs in a state of discomfort, which I thought was pretty interesting. But more to your point, he said there was 3 sources, and he called it complexity, but it's forcing yourself or getting forced into discomfort. And one way is it's forced upon you, against your will, maybe. Another one is you have a coach or a parent or a leader who helps you get there. And I can look back in life and see many of those people, coaches, parents, mentors, friends, being that person, because people prefer order, and they may need to be pushed into complexity in order to continue growing. And I'm sure I went kicking and screaming many times, as I'm sure a few of us have. And then also the last way was to trigger it yourself, and that's kind of like that misogi thing you were getting at, which we can get into a little bit more later, but I just wanted to highlight that. The other note that I wanted to bring up too, in terms of comfort, and this is a huge one, is the idea of boredom and how uncomfortable people are with being bored. And it's a simple thing, and I'm 100% guilty of it. I'm not trying to pretend that I'm not guilty of succumbing to trying to fight my own boredom. Think about anytime you're standing in line at a store somewhere, I'll pull up my phone, needlessly, endlessly, boringly, because I'm bored, scroll through Facebook and see what's going on out there in the world, or scroll up through Instagram or whatever social media, or just pull up Google and just search random strange things like, are snail shells part of the snail, or random things like that, because that is something I searched the other day when I saw a snail crawling up my glass door. I was like, huh, Do snails grow their shells? By the way, they do, in case you didn't know. And I learned that the other day, which I probably should have learned like 20 or 30 years ago. Maybe I did and I just forgot. I don't know. But the idea of boredom, and it comes up in the book a couple of times, but I think back to it, experiences in life, like think about when you've been bored and like really, really bored. For us three, all of being EOD techs in global war on terror, route clearance is the first thing that comes to my mind, and the conversations that we had. I can remember a distinct time with one of my buddies on my team in Bagram. We, no kidding, only through talking had like completely designed in like 3D an RC airplane with a retractable landing gear and all this madness, because we had nothing but 14 to 16 hours of sitting in a truck doing 2 miles an hour, waiting for something exciting to happen, right? So what happens when you actually legitimately get bored? You find creativity. That's kind of the point. And by numbing boredom, by seeking some medication for boredom in a freaking cell phone screen, right? You're muting that and you're removing that and you're taking away creativity because you don't give yourself a chance to actually legitimately be bored. What do you guys think about that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. As soon as you brought up boredom, I wrote boredom in kids. And then I wanted to say, this is not something that the next generations, the formative years as of right now, as a whole, have the same understanding that maybe we did. And it's not better or worse because we would have done the same thing had this technology been around at our time. So it's not like, our generation is better or this and that. Yeah, get off my fucking lawn, That's not how it works, It's creativity, that boredom, that not having that constant fake stimuli controlling the path of the brain and where it wanders, but separating or at least putting some distance temporarily between the two, for some people is enough discomfort for growth to occur. But it takes discipline. It takes effort, kind of like anything worthwhile in life. Anything that we have learned that's been chiseled into our brains, even to relate it to EOD stuff, certain procedures, you can have amnesia and still never forget, like that's how this shit works. So it still is possible to get through that and learn, So, yeah. What do you think, Paz?
Yeah, I took a lot out of the boredom section of this book because I really do think it is something we've gotten away from, for what you guys have already described, and definitely don't want to turn this into a parenting seminar or anything, but that's a big piece once again of why we chose to select where our forever home is. It's up on a hill and it's out in the woods, and that was intentional. Finding not only sometimes forced, I think you talked about that, Brad. We as parents, and we try and self-reflect on this as well, self-induced boredom, and we enforce boredom on our children. And like I said, I don't want to get into the finer nuances of what parents should and shouldn't do, but we kick the kids outside. I'm usually, when I'm up there, I'm already out there anyway, sometimes bored, sometimes not, but when I get I'm bored from the kids, I go, oh, okay, well, this garden needs weeded. Let's go do that. That's boring. I am forcing some boredom upon you. And then pretty soon my 8-year-olds turned it into like a fight against the alien weeds that are there, and he's air bending and water bending and earth bending to get rid of these weeds, and it happens. The creativity that you're talking, yes, it's there, or my 12-year-old who's extremely analytical, he then gets into conversations with me about why is this, what, how, he wants to ponder all of these things. And that happens when we're not playing Fortnite. So yeah, it's out there, and it's extremely important. And I don't think we embrace boredom. We constantly have to be working towards something. It's Sunday here, Sunday where you guys are at as well. I'm not in my own time stamp, but I know I have work stuff I need to do because it's building towards something else for this week. Be bored. Be bored. Yeah, can't stress it enough, and that's a big learning thing for me, is embracing being bored. That's what I got.
Brad, do you know how to be bored?
That's not a loaded question. You know the answer to that. I find myself bored sometimes on my motorcycle, like when I'm on a flat, straight road and I'm just like, it's the last 30 minutes to get home, and I'm just like, this sucks. Just go faster to get it over with. But you're totally right. I definitely fight boredom pretty regularly, and there's definitely this past. I will tell you, last Monday, I had a day of leave planned to go up. We were going to do a night hike at Trecime, which is an awesome natural landscape area here in Italy. And the weather just came in and was total crap. And normally I would have just canceled it and just went to work and been like, yeah, whatever, may as well just go to work. But I decided to keep that day of leave and drive up to this park that's way up in the mountains where cell service disappears really quickly. And I just put out this like folding chair that I have that's absolutely amazing. If you can ever find one, highly recommend you buy them. I don't know what the heck it's called, but it like folds out flat, and you're like suspended, like laying flat up off the ground, not like a old school plastic, crappy, uncomfortable lawn chair or like a pool chair. Excuse me. There's something different about this one, but I set that thing up like in the middle of like a river where there's rapids and like waterfalls and stuff, and just sat there in the sun, feeling the sun on my face. And I had my iPad with me to read a book if I wanted, or play some Tetris or whatever. And I would say for about 90% of that time, I just laid there and just felt the sun, and then felt the clouds come cover up the sun, and just listened to the water flowing in the rapids. And I wouldn't say I was bored, but I was really relishing not doing anything and letting my mind wander to wherever it wanted to go. And at times not really thinking anything at all either. It's kind of funny. It's been up until recently, I've started to notice like I finally figured out when I'm about to fall asleep. And I don't know what this has to do with comfort, but and discomfort. I figure out that my mind just starts to go wacky, right? It goes all over the place to just crazy thoughts that mean nothing. And that's when I know I'm about to fall asleep. So like I'm trying to train myself to not fight that and to let that happen. So that's just an interesting sidebar, I guess. But no, I suck at being bored.
Well, I I knew I was gonna be that loaded question was gonna be like me opening the door, asking you a question, throwing in a grenade, and then closing it and see what happens. Because I'm the exact same way, Brad. This is the constant bombardment of the hamster wheels wanting to move forward, or problems to solve, or feeling like we have responsibilities to solve or take care of, or this and that. I'm pretty sure I'm not a psychologist or a doctor or anything, but I'm pretty sure I could tie it to the importance of the role that we've been in for so long, especially either at more operational bases or especially during combat OIF, OEF. I think that muscle memory has changed in us, and it takes every individual different amount of time to maybe reverse a little bit of that, or I've talked about the two parts of the nervous system. I'm not going to beat that horse, but I think there's a level of awareness that needs to happen with people, though. I can tell you that if you would have asked me probably 3.5, 4 years ago if I feel prepared for life and this and that, I think I'm a pretty normal guy. I would have told you, yeah, man, I have this plan. I'm already accepted to school. We're going to go do this and that. Yeah, I got a pension and blah, blah, blah. We're good. There's so much more to happiness, contentedness, comfort, whatever, the next phase, than just having an idea and a plan and being accepted to college. There's so much more than just having a job lined up. There's so much more than just knowing where, okay, I got a house. This isn't directed to anybody specifically. This is just my consolidated, this is what I've seen, because I paid attention to the people who got out before me, and I paid attention to what they were going through afterwards, and I wanted to learn from what they were doing. And I've been talking about this for a while, having a plan, having a path forward. I almost kind of want to rephrase it as adjusting one's direction, maybe not relating it to a path, because I do think sometimes we relate that to, once we change a path that goes from this direction to a path on here, sometimes I think people are like, okay, well, now I'm on this path. I can't get off of this path. This is the path I'm going. And for me, it's more of like a compass or a direction. Like, if I can go my true north, if you will, based on my values, morals, principles, and experience in life, if I can base more decisions on a daily basis that's directed towards going towards that general direction that I know I want to go, I think that will help me succeed overall in reacting versus responding. I will leave it at that.
So we're coming up on just about an hour, and I don't want to take too much of your guys' time. I know, Paz, you got some stuff coming up. So if you guys have any other thoughts on comfort, discomfort you'd like to throw out, feel free. Otherwise, I got kind of an idea to wrap this up with, to leave anybody who watches this with to think about. Okay, cool.
Paz, I have a feeling that your gears have been turning. You might have something to say. You probably do.
They are, but I feel it it might take us off topic. So I will not be offended. Just give you the thumbs up, the thumbs down. But when
I'm good on time. I'm good on time. So
the plan piece, it takes me back to, and again, like I mentioned before, we especially, this very small setting here, we love to bring stuff back to EOD and taking it back to running operations and doing things. And especially as a young team leader, and I think it's a common practice In fact, I know it is, because I've not only done it myself, but watched it in literally hundreds of other teams, just from the experiences I got to have, like at Cobra and training and preparing other teams, right? You give your scenario, whether it be through a 9-line or this is what we're going to do. And immediately the talk turns into, we are going to X. We are going to this. We are going to XYZ. Then this is going to happen. Then that's going to happen. And then either I myself or I watch others pull up and they go, holy shit, it is nothing like we expected, but I need to now make the determination whether I am going to respond or react. React would be, I'm going to take the scenario now as it sits and fit it to my pre-established plan. I've not seen that be very successful. You can respond to what I now have in front of me. And where this became, and why I was sitting there thinking was, this became a thing that I actively started doing in the truck when we would get our call from the talk and they're like, hey, we're lining it up at the gate, QRF, we're heading out. Always, well, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do with that? Don't know. We're not there yet. Don't worry about it. Here's what I do know. We do know we have to establish security. We do know that we have to take into account the situation. We do know we have to go talk to the person that actually saw this. Let's focus on that. Focus on the things that we control, because the other things that may be different are not things that we control. The things that we do control is our equipment is tied down. Our truck is ready to go. Our you have water, you have food, you have, focus on the things that you control. So when you get to the situation where there are numerous things out of your control, you can respond rather than react to those and point things towards the direction that they need to go. So we would actively not plan on our way to the call, if that makes sense. We would actively not come up with a plan. And we would all catch each other. One of the three of us would be going down, so I'd be like, hey, shut up. We have no idea how that's going to be, man. So let's focus on this other crap, or let's go back to naming songs. Like, let's do that. So that was why the wheels were turning. But again, that could be way off from. I mean, that's not really a comfort thing. So.
No, it can be a comfort thing though, because plans are comfortable, right? Plans are what we know. Plans are what we expect. And then when things don't happen as expected, what do? You get uncomfortable while you try to solve it. So I don't think you're wandering very far off the path at all, personally.
Yeah, I wrote down here. I started writing notes, 9-line respond versus react, and then I wrote something that I thought it just popped in my head. You put it together for me. Structure is comfort? Question mark. Balance. Too much structure, rigidity in a. Let's even get more abstract. A mental process in general. If an individual is stuck in a mental process, a routine that becomes more about following the routine than it does about the intended goal of doing that, I would think that would be closer to an imbalance of that. Have I seen that on different ends of the spectrum? Yeah. Have I seen, to tie it back to what you were saying, EOD? Have I seen team members and team leaders that I have unfortunately had to put the stamp of not certified on? Yeah, I've had to make that decision because of those inabilities to do that when the rubber meets the road. You know what I mean? That's just kind of how I relate it to what you were talking about with EOD is, I just thought that might resonate a little bit.
You guys got any other closing remarks or thoughts or comments? I got one last thing that I'm going to put a little bow on this whole conversation with, ready to go. But by all means, if you guys have some other ideas and thoughts you want to throw out, let's do it. We just hit the 1 hour mark on the recording.
I got a quick one. You can use it for a sound bite or anything, but this is shit I was jotting down. I can't remember. It ties into nature, but I wrote down 4 seasons and some of the similarities we were talking about with looking at death and life and ends of the spectrum, if you will. I've always told people that I like the 4 distinct seasons. I've lived all over the place, overseas and all that stuff. I grew up in the Northeast Pennsylvania. I like the Northeast area because I like 4 different seasons. Why? Why do I like 4 different seasons? I think because the 2 favorite seasons are spring and fall. I love fall that we're in right now. And a lot of people do, especially in the area in the Northeast because of the foliage change. That's not a uncommon thing, right? But if you think about it, it could kind of be a little morbid because here is the shift from life to death in plants and all the foliage around here. And that's literally the visual cues with the sun changing. That's the visual cues for the certain biology to change its circadian rhythm, and that's what changes the cycle and all that stuff. That's what a lot of people like to see. That's in the gray area of life. Transition from life to death is a cycle. And I think, and I'm getting a little philosophical here, but this is how I put it down. That's why I think, to tie it back, I think it's important to how life is like this, acknowledging that sometimes we're going a little bit closer to death and sometimes we're going a little closer to life, and that's okay. It's understanding the importance of the moment, whether it's good or bad, but knowing that you're not going to be there forever, that things continue like water. That's all I wanted to say about that.
No, I think that's an awesome thought and concept, and that came up, talking about the idea of impermanence, which is sort of part of like a Buddhist philosophy, where in certain areas, Bhutan, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, the country of Bhutan, they deliberately think about death at least 3 times a day, every day, and because of that, they're happier, because they realize of how temporary everything alive is, and it all will come to an end at some point for everyone. So if you remember that, instead of pretend that won't happen or ignore it, you're way more likely to live a much more happy and more full life. And that's definitely a lesson that I took away from this book that I'm going to try to transfer to daily life for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important to have the whole life part of the equation in the windshield, and the death part, maybe in the side mirrors, understanding that you've seen it before, it's coming, but life goes this way. And so, yeah. Harumph.
Yeah, that whole piece about, nothing being permanent, you know, I just always think of, you know, it's a fella from back home that, you know, he's my dad's best friend. I mean, this guy's, you know, I don't know, 76, 77 years old. Just worked hard his whole life, and now is enjoying retirement, and is very, like, every day they have an alarm set at their house at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That's happy hour. It doesn't matter what they're doing. They mix two fingers and they go out to the porch. Jerry and his wife Buggy, and they sit on the porch. If it's 2 degrees, they sit on the porch. If it's 85 degrees, and they have a drink. And other people now know this and come by because, oh, well, it's 4 o'clock. I was close. I knew you guys would be having a drink. And what Jerry has always been telling me, because he knows the kind of person I am, and he is one that constantly reminds me it's about the ride. He's like, you're going the same place I'm going. It's about the ride. So enjoy it. And think all the way back to you when you were an airman and you were, where are we going? Doesn't matter. We were going there together, and it was just Friday afternoon. We were going somewhere, and it didn't matter where. And never let it stop being about just going. And I know it's something that helps me with that. It's about the ride. Enjoy that part.
Hell yeah. I like that a lot. And that reminds me of, we had a place in the Poconos back there in PA. Our neighbor across the street, same exact thing at 4 p.m. every day, same time even. His drink though was a Tom Collins. He had a Tom Collins every day at 4 p.m. And he'd always play some old crooner. I can't remember his name, but you'd hear him playing it loud, and you could always go over and hang out and get a drink with him if you wanted, or just, you know, enjoy it from afar. But it's the same thing, man. That's awesome. That's good stuff. So the closing note I have, sorry, I'm just typing up some time hacks here. Ignore me. Okay. So the closing notes I have, this is actually the first time I heard this, and I haven't thought about it since. And, you know, now, oh my God, 20 years ago. Excuse me. The first time I heard it was in high school football, because my team sucked when I was in high school. We were terrible, and we were always bad, and we lost a lot, right? But you learn the most from losing, right? How much do you learn from winning all the time? Not really a whole lot, because whatever you're doing is working. So just keep doing what you're doing instead of trying new things. But I heard this story from a grizzled old Marine vet. He was in Vietnam, cut around to the leg, got sent home with his $1 million wound, but definitely fought hard up until that point. Had some awesome stories to share, and I got to go back and hang out with them and hear some of those, but that's besides the point. Kurt Weiss is his name, Coach Kurt Weiss. He unfortunately passed away a couple years ago. Awesome guy. Back to the point. He told us this story when we were sitting around feeling sorry for ourselves after getting another loss. And the short of the story is they talk about training elephants, right? And you take a baby elephant and you take a small rope and a stake and you stake it down. And this baby elephant eventually, like right away, it'll try to pull and it'll realize it's staked down. And over time, it'll stop pulling and it'll start to grow and get bigger. And you can take the chain off. You can just put like the anklet on the elephant and have a stake somewhere nearby, and the elephant's not going anywhere because it's comfortable with where it is and it's comfortable with what it knows to be every day. So if you're not careful, you know, that's what comfort can do to you, is kind of the point of that story. That comfort trap, you know, they call it problem creep or comfort creep, can keep you stuck in a place where you never get past a 10-foot circle. So, you know, that's why I think it's really important to bring this subject up and talk about it and kind of think about, you know, what am I comfortable with today? Why am I comfortable with it? What can I do differently to grow and get better and just experience new things? Maybe not improve, maybe not grow, maybe not any of these professional development type ideas, but just, you know, experience more of the human experience, because that's what it's all about. Because like you said, yeah, be a lobster. We're all going to the same place at some point, right? So may as well enjoy the ride and may as well get the most out of it, right? Because if you don't do that, you don't realize that you can go further than that 10-foot circle around that stake. So that's kind of the point. So if anybody else has anything else to add at the end, please feel free. Otherwise, give you guys a few minutes and then I'll hit the stop recording. Maybe not a few minutes, but that's it. All right. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for taking the time. Oh, please go.
Nail on head.
Awesome. Thank you guys for taking the time to join us and provide your thoughts. This was awesome. I always love these conversations, and this one was one of the best ones for sure. So thank you guys, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm going to hit stop record.